The broken prize. The war had ended. The air was still full of smoke. Ships were leaving, soldiers were shouting, and dead machines lay broken on the ground. Everything was quiet now, except for the girl. She stood alone, covered in dirt and blood. Her clothes were torn, her arms were bruised, chains wrapped around her wrists like cold snakes. She was shaking, not from the cold, but from fear. Her name was forgotten. They didn't even ask. To the soldiers, she was just a prize, a spoil of war. "She's yours now," one officer said, throwing a metal key into a human soldier's hand. "Reward for bravery. Enjoy." The soldier, tall, quiet, with tired eyes, didn't move. He looked at the girl, then at the key, then back at the officer. "I didn't ask for her," he said. "You don't need to ask." The officer laughed. "She's not a person. She's property now." The girl looked down. She had heard those words before. On her planet when her people fell. On the ships where they kept her locked. And now again, here. A human world. Another cage. The officer left. The soldier, his name was Daniel, stood in front of her, silent. He didn't smile. He didn't touch her. He just looked at her eyes. "Can you walk?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer. She didn't know if it was a trick. He waited. She nodded slowly. "Then come," he said. "Let's go." Daniel didn't take her to a prison. He didn't tie her up. Instead, he brought her to a small, quiet house on the edge of the military zone. There were no guards, no other soldiers, just him, and now, her. He opened the door and let her in. She walked slowly, afraid of traps. "You can stay here," he said. "This room is yours." The room had a small bed, a blanket, a chair, nothing else. "I don't lock doors," he added. She looked up, confused. "No chains?" He left the key on the table and walked away. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat in the corner of the room, eyes wide open. Waiting, listening. Any second, she thought, he'll come in. He'll want something. He'll do what the others did, but nothing happened. The next morning, a tray of food waited near her door. Still warm, water, bread, even some fruit. She picked it up with shaking hands. Was it poisoned? But she was too hungry to care. She ate. Later that day, Daniel came home. He looked tired, oil stains on his shirt, a wrench in his hand. A mechanic, maybe? He saw the empty plate and said, "I'm glad you ate." She stared at him. No words. He didn't ask her anything. Just nodded and went to fix something in the other room. Every day the same. Food, water, clean clothes. A quiet room. And no touches, no orders. But her fear didn't leave. Then, one night, it happened. She heard a sound, loud voices outside, footsteps. She rushed to the window and saw two drunk soldiers walking toward the house. They saw her through the glass and laughed. "Hey, that's the prize, right?" one shouted. Daniel opened the door and stepped out. "She's mine," the drunk soldier said. "Come on, let us borrow her." Daniel's voice was calm. "Go home." The other soldier pushed Daniel's shoulder. "You don't even use her. What's the point of having a prize if you don't enjoy it?" Before another word came, Daniel hit him. Fast. Hard. The soldier dropped. The other backed away. "You want to talk about using someone again?" Daniel growled. "Come back and I'll break your teeth." The two ran off into the night. The girl watched everything. She wasn't used to this. No one ever protected her. No one ever stood between her and pain. Daniel walked back inside, his fist bleeding. He looked at her, breathing heavy. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't want them near you." She still said nothing. But for the first time, she didn't feel like a slave. That night, she didn't sit in the corner. She lay on the bed. She even pulled the blanket over herself. Before sleep came, she whispered 4 words softly to herself. He didn't hurt me, and for the first time since the war ended. She closed her eyes and didn't feel afraid. Lyra didn't know why he hadn't touched her. That's what everyone else did. That's what they expected. Even she had expected it. But the man, Daniel, hadn't once looked at her the way others did, not with hunger, not with power, just quiet eyes like he was always thinking about something far away. Still, Lyra didn't trust it, not yet. Every morning, food appeared outside her door. Simple, warm food. Nothing fancy, but always enough. Water, too. Sometimes even a clean cloth or extra blanket. She tried to stay silent, to keep the distance, but her eyes followed Daniel when he walked by. He never forced the door, never asked questions, never stared. One evening she stepped out of the room quietly. She found Daniel in the kitchen fixing a small radio. His hands were dirty, his sleeves rolled up. He looked surprised to see her, but he didn't speak. He just nodded and pointed to the chair beside him. Lyra sat. They didn't say a word. After a while, she pointed to the broken radio. "Music?" she asked in a soft, broken voice. Daniel smiled a little. "Used to be. Now it's just quiet." She nodded slowly. Silence was something they both understood. That night, Lyra walked back to her room, but she left the door open a little. 2 nights later, she tried to leave. Not because she didn't like Daniel, but because she didn't know what freedom looked like. She had been trapped for so long she didn't believe kindness was real. So when the wind was strong and the street was dark, she stepped outside. Her heart pounded. Her breath was sharp. No one stopped her. She walked through quiet alleys, past rusted signs and broken lights. She didn't know where she was going. She just ran. But it didn't take long. 3 men saw her, drunk, laughing, and full of ugly thoughts. They followed her into a side street. One grabbed her arm. "Where are you going, little prize?" He hissed. "You run from your owner?" Lyra's heart screamed in her chest. Her voice failed. She tried to pull away, but another man stepped in front of her. Then a shadow moved behind them. A hand grabbed the drunk's collar and yanked him back. Hard. It was Daniel. He didn't say a word. He didn't warn them, he just fought. Fists flew. One man dropped. Another ran. The last one swung wildly, but Daniel caught his arm and punched once, twice, until the man slumped against the wall. Blood on his knuckles, Daniel turned to her. She didn't run. She didn't cry, she just stood frozen, shaking. "Let's go," he said softly, holding out his hand. She stared at it. She hadn't been offered a hand in years. Slowly, carefully, she took it. Back home, Daniel sat at the table, holding a cloth to his bleeding hand. Lyra stood nearby, unsure. Then, without a word, she walked to the sink, wet another cloth, and knelt beside him. She took his hand gently and started cleaning the wound. He winced but didn't pull away. "You didn't have to come," she whispered. He looked into her eyes. "Of course I did." "Why?" she asked. "I'm just—" "No," he interrupted. "You're not just anything." Tears welled up in her golden eyes, but she blinked them away. "You are free here," he said. "You don't have to stay. But if you do, I will protect you. Not because I own you, but because no one else ever did." Lyra lowered her head. "I don't know what I am anymore," she said. "Not a slave, not free." "You're safe," he said quietly. "That's enough for now." That night she didn't close the door at all. She slept in the bed, not the corner. She pulled the blanket to her chin and let herself rest. 40. The first time in many nights no dreams came. The next morning Daniel placed a cup of warm tea on the table. Lyra joined him. She didn't flinch when he sat beside her. Her hair was brushed, her eyes clearer. She looked at him and asked, "What is this place?" He thought for a moment. "A broken place," he said, "but quieter than war." "And me?" she asked. He smiled gently. You're not broken, just tired. Lyra didn't answer, but she reached for the tea with both hands. Her fingers brushed his. She didn't pull away, and for the first time she began to wonder. Maybe she wasn't just surviving, maybe she was healing. Lyra used to speak often, once. Back on her home planet, her voice had been soft but full of life. She used to sing to her little sister, argue with her mother, and laugh with friends under a sky that no longer existed. But now, her voice was like a broken string. Still there, but silent. Days passed in Daniel's home. Warm meals continued. Quiet mornings became routine. Sometimes they ate together. Sometimes they didn't speak at all. But there was a strange peace in the silence. She noticed things about him. He liked fixing machines. Old radios, broken lamps, engine parts spread across the table. His hands were always busy but gentle. His house was clean, but not perfect. It smelled like oil, metal, and sometimes tea. And he never asked her for anything. One evening, Lyra stood in the doorway and watched him work. She had been thinking for days about what he said. You're not broken, just tired. Those words stayed with her. She stepped closer. Why do you fix things that are already broken? She asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel looked up, surprised. He hadn't heard her speak more than a few words at a time. He set the tool down slowly. Because broken doesn't mean useless, he said. It just means someone gave up too soon. She blinked. Those words hurt, in a strange, good way. That night, she stayed in the kitchen longer than usual. She told him her real name. Lyra. Not a number. Not a label. He smiled. That's a good name. The next few days, something inside Lyra began to change. She started asking small questions. What is this tool? Why do humans grow so many? Flowers? Do your people always speak so fast? Daniel answered each one with patience. No judgment, no laughter. When he taught her how to use a screwdriver, she listened carefully. Her hand still shook sometimes, but he guided her gently. His voice was calm, steady. You're a fast learner, he said. She smiled. Just a little. It felt strange on her face. One night, a storm hit the town. Strong winds howled through the trees. The power flickered. The lights went out. Rain hit the roof like falling stones. Lyra rushed out of her room, heart racing. Storms on her planet meant danger, death, explosions. She found Daniel sitting near a small lantern, reading. He looked up. It's just rain. Come sit. She did. She sat closer than usual, her knees tucked to her chest. I'm scared, she admitted softly. He nodded. Me too. Sometimes. That surprised her. You're a soldier, she said. You're not afraid of anything. He looked down. I've seen too much to not be afraid. Lyra was silent for a while. Then slowly she began to speak. My sister died in the bombing. She was 6. We were hiding. The ground opened. She was gone. Her voice cracked. Daniel didn't interrupt. He just listened. I tried to dig with my hands, she whispered, but there was too much dust, too much fire. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. I didn't want to live after that, she confessed. Daniel placed his hand gently over hers. No words, just warmth. You lived, he said after a long pause. And you're still here. That night they sat by the lantern until the storm passed. No chains, no cages. Just 2 broken souls learning how to breathe again. The next morning, Lyra woke early. She opened the window and let the fresh air in. The world looked new. Even the dirt path outside seemed brighter. She made tea, carefully, slowly. When Daniel came into the kitchen, she handed him a cup. I don't know if I made it right, she said nervously. He sipped, smiled. It's perfect. Lyra laughed, softly, and even she was surprised by the sound. Later, Daniel gave her a small notebook. "For you," he said. "Write, draw, or tear the pages out if you want." She opened it slowly. The pages were blank, empty, like her life now. But that meant she could fill them with new words, new dreams, maybe even hope. Lyra looked up at him and whispered, "You didn't buy me, but you gave me back something no one else did." "What's that?" he asked. "My voice." The town's annual festival was coming. Colorful flags were hung on buildings. Lights glowed on every corner. Children painted their faces. Music filled the air. It was the first time Lyra saw humans laugh without fear in their eyes. She watched from the window, her golden eyes wide. She had never seen anything like it. On her world, festivals were ancient memories, lost with the first bomb. For years, noise only meant alarms, sirens, or screams. Daniel stood behind her. He saw her wonder. "Would you like to go?" he asked gently. Lyra turned to him. "With me?" "Yes, with you." She looked down. "But they'll stare." Daniel nodded. "Yes, maybe, but I'll be there." She hesitated, then gave the smallest nod. The next day, they walked together into town. The air smelled like roasted meat, fried sweets, and summer wind. People laughed, danced, played music. But when they saw her, the laughter slowed. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. She heard the whispers. "That's the alien girl, the war prize. I heard she was given to a soldier. Why is he letting her walk beside him?" Daniel ignored them, but Lyra's steps grew smaller. Still, he didn't let go of her hand. They stopped at a booth selling handcrafted jewelry. A small child pointed at her. "Is she a real alien?" the child asked loudly. His mother quickly pulled him away. Lyra's cheeks burned. "I want to go back," she whispered. Daniel looked into her eyes. "Not yet. Please." He bought a bracelet, simple, with blue stones, and gently tied it to her wrist. "For courage," he said. She looked at it like it was made of gold. Later, as they sat on a bench near the fountain, 3 drunk men approached. Soldiers, young, loud. One grinned. "Well, well, if it isn't the hero and his prize." Daniel's jaw tightened. Lyra stood, trying to leave, but one of the men stepped in her way. "You should be grateful," he laughed. "At least your human dresses you now." "Back off," Daniel said firmly. But the soldier grabbed Lyra's arm. "Come on, let's see what makes her so special." And then, without warning, Daniel hit him, hard. The soldier dropped, bleeding from his nose. The others lunged. A fight exploded. Lyra watched in shock as Daniel moved with fury and precision. He didn't speak. He didn't stop. 2 against 1, and he didn't fall. A crowd formed. Gasps filled the air. When it was over, Daniel stood over them, chest heaving, knuckles bloody. Then he turned to Lyra. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly, still shaking. The crowd whispered louder now. Some pointed. Some looked angry. Some looked ashamed. A shopkeeper stepped forward and handed Lyra a cloth for Daniel's wounds. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice cracked. It wasn't fear this time. It was something else. Belief. They left the festival early. The ride home was quiet. When they reached the house, Lyra cleaned Daniel's wounds. "You didn't have to fight," she whispered. He looked at her, serious. "Yes, I did." "Why?" "Because you're not a prize." She looked away. Her eyes shimmered. "That's what they called me. But it's not what you are." She touched his hand. For the first time, not with fear, but with choice. "You didn't ask for me," she said. "But you protect me. You listen. You wait." "Why?" He paused, then answered softly. "Because you matter to me." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't hide them. "I thought I would die as someone's possession," she whispered. "But with you, I feel alive." Daniel said nothing. He didn't try to kiss her. He didn't rush. Instead, he gently wrapped his fingers around hers. "You don't owe me anything," he said. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "No," she whispered. "But I want to give something back. Because now, I know what kindness feels like." Outside, the festival lights still flickered in the distance. But inside the quiet house, something stronger than celebration was growing. Trust. The morning after the festival, the town was quiet again. Flags still waved in the breeze, but the laughter was gone. People whispered in corners. Some stayed silent when they passed Daniel's house. Others just looked down. Inside the small home, the air was still warm from the night before. Daniel stood in the kitchen making tea. Lyra sat at the table, her fingers gently tracing the blue stone bracelet he gave her. It had become a part of her now, a quiet reminder that she wasn't invisible anymore. She had barely slept. The way he fought for her, the way he never asked for anything in return. It stirred something inside her that she hadn't felt in years. She still didn't understand it completely, but it felt safe. Good. Daniel placed a cup of tea in front of her. "You didn't have to protect me," she said softly. "I wanted to," he replied. "I always will." Lyra looked at him. "But they still see me as a slave?" Daniel took a deep breath. "What do you see when you look at yourself?" She was quiet for a long time. "I don't know," she admitted. "Sometimes I still feel like I'm not real, like I'm just leftover. Something taken, something given." Daniel shook his head slowly. "You are not something. You are someone." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small notebook, the same one he had given her days ago. He opened it to the first page and handed her a pen. "Write your name," he said. She hesitated. Her hand trembled. "I don't have one anymore." "Then choose one," he said. "One that belongs to you. Not to your captors, not to your past. Just you." She stared at the blank page. Memories flooded in, flashes of laughter, screams, her sister's hand slipping away under the rubble. Her old name was tied to so much pain. She couldn't go back to that, so she thought of the sky on her homeworld, how it looked before the war. Bright, golden, endless, she slowly wrote, "Lyra." Daniel smiled. "Lyra," he said softly. "It suits you." She blinked. "What does it mean?" "In my language," he said, "it's a word from the stars. It means hope." Lyra felt something tighten in her chest. Not pain, not fear. Something new. She whispered, "Then that will be my name." The days passed quietly. Daniel taught her how to cook human food. She wasn't good at it at first. She burned rice, overboiled eggs, and dropped a pot once that made them both laugh until their eyes watered. But he never scolded her. "I'm not trying to be perfect," she told him one evening. "I'm not asking you to be," he replied. She started to hum again while sweeping the floor, folding clothes, or preparing meals. Her voice was soft and low, but it was there, alive. Daniel would listen from the workshop, smiling to himself. One night after a small dinner, Lyra sat by the window. Stars filled the sky. She hadn't looked at them properly in years. "Back in Adadaisen, the camps, there were no stars, only fences and fire. Do you ever miss someone?" she asked suddenly. Daniel looked up from his book. "All the time." "Who?" He was quiet for a moment. "My brother. He didn't make it back from the war." Lyra turned toward him. "I'm sorry." Daniel nodded. "War takes too much. From everyone." She looked down. "It took everything from me." "Not everything," he said. She tilted her head. "What did I keep?" He met her eyes. "Your soul. Your strength. And now, your name." Lyra smiled softly. I've been thinking, she said. You gave me a name. You gave me safety, food, warmth. But I want to give something back. Daniel looked confused. You don't owe me anything. I know, she said. But I want to. He didn't speak. I want to stay, she whispered. Not because I have nowhere else, but because with you I feel like a person again. He moved closer, slowly, not to scare her. And I want you to stay, he said gently. She reached for his hand. It wasn't a handshake, it wasn't a deal. It was something deeper, something human. You saved me, she said. No, he replied. We saved each other. That night, Lyra wrote her name again and again in the notebook. Different styles. Small, large, with hearts beside it. She even drew herself, her new self. Clean, smiling, free. For the first time since the war began, she no longer felt like she belonged to the past. She belonged to now, to a name, to a home, to someone who saw her as more. It began with a letter. Daniel found it sitting on his doorstep early one morning. The seal was official, heavy, cold. The words inside were worse. Report to Central Court. Ownership dispute regarding alien spoil property. Bring the asset. He read it twice, then again. Lyra, sitting at the table with a warm cup of tea, saw his expression change. What is it? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he handed her the letter. As she read, her hands began to shake. Her eyes, now used to warmth and comfort, filled with fear once more. They're calling. Me asset, she whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. They want to decide if you should be returned to government custody. They say you're not legal. Lyra stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. So they can just take me? She asked, her voice cracking. After everything? No, Daniel said firmly. I won't let them. But it's their law. Then I'll break it. The court building was large, cold, and gray. The inside was worse, white walls, quiet halls, and no kindness in anyone's eyes. Daniel held Lyra's hand the whole time. She wore the bracelet he had given her. Her name, Lyra, was written clearly on the folder she carried as if writing. It made her more real. People stared. A few guards whispered. She's the one from the war. The one he claimed. Why did he even keep her? Should have been sold. They entered the courtroom. A tall man in a dark uniform sat behind the desk. You've brought the subject? He asked. She has a name, Daniel replied coldly. Lyra. The man didn't flinch. This isn't personal. It's procedure. The law still recognizes her as war property, and property cannot be granted full rights. She is not property, Daniel said. She's my wife. Gasps filled the room. The judge paused. You're what? Daniel stood straight. My wife. I married her under free will. She stays with me because she chooses to. The judge frowned. There is no record of this marriage. It was personal, between us. The man slammed his hand on the table. That's not how law works. You can't just call a captive your wife and expect approval. Daniel's voice grew louder. Then change the law. Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was small, but strong. I am not a slave. I was, but not anymore. He never touched me, never forced me. He listened. He protected me. I chose him. You chose? The judge said with disbelief. That's not valid testimony. Lyra's hands shook, but she didn't step back. If being free is not allowed, then your laws are chains, she said softly. Outside, a small crowd had formed, reporters, locals, even a few former soldiers. Word had spread about the alien girl who was treated with respect, about the man who refused to treat her as property, about their strange story, and the bond between them. People were divided. She's a slave. Rules are rules, one man said. She's not hurting anyone, a woman replied. Let her live. She's not even human, someone muttered. She's more human than the ones who sold her, came the reply. Inside the courtroom, the judge stood to deliver his order. Until higher officials make a ruling, he declared, the alien, female must be turned over to central custody. Any resistance will be punished under section. Daniel stepped forward. No. The judge froze. I said no. Daniel repeated. If you want her, you'll have to go through me, and I won't make it easy. The guards tensed. Hands moved to weapons. But then, doors slammed open. Voices rose. The crowd outside pushed in, and they weren't silent anymore. Let her go. She's not a prisoner. She has rights. Even former soldiers raised their voices. She saved him. She's not what the law says she is. She's one of us now. The judge looked around, startled. This is a courtroom, he shouted. But the people didn't stop. And in that moment, Daniel stepped beside Lyra, raised her hand high, and said, She is my family, my wife, my heart, and I will not let you erase that. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were not from fear. They were from pride. The judge didn't give a new order that day. He simply left the courtroom in silence. No one stopped Daniel or Lyra as they walked out, hand in hand, heads high, past the crowd of cheering voices. That night, back at home, Lyra sat by the window again. I thought I would be taken, she said quietly. I knew they'd have to kill me first, Daniel replied. She turned to him. I want to be your wife, she said softly. For real. Not just in word, not just in defiance, but because I love you. Daniel's eyes softened. Then say it again, he whispered. I love you, she said. He took her hand and placed it over his heart. And I love you. A soft breeze passed through the open window. Lyra stood barefoot on the porch watching the sunrise. The morning light warmed her lavender skin, and her golden eyes reflected the sky. She wore a simple dress, one she picked herself. No chains. No guards, no fear. Behind her, the house was quiet but full of life. It smelled of tea, old wood, and something sweet baking in the oven. Lyra had made it herself. She liked learning recipes now, she liked choosing, she liked waking up and knowing the day was hers. Inside, Daniel stirred awake. He stretched, walked into the kitchen, and found her tea already waiting for him on the table. She had done that every day since the court, since the world stopped seeing her as something taken and started seeing her as someone loved. He stepped outside and gently placed a kiss on her head. She leaned against him, quiet and smiling. I still think I'm dreaming, she whispered. You're not, he replied. You're my wife. Lyra smiled more. You say it so easily. Because it's true. Life didn't become perfect, but it became real. Some humans still stared when she went into town. A few shopkeepers stayed cold, but others greeted her kindly now. A little girl handed her flowers once. An old man tipped his hat. Someone left a note outside their house that simply said, Thank you for teaching us what it means to care. Lyra started helping others like her. Not just aliens, anyone who felt lost or forgotten. She used to be the one no one spoke to. Now people listened when she did. Daniel worked on machines during the day. Lyra often sat beside him, handing him tools, asking questions, laughing at his terrible jokes. They shared everything. Meals, chores, dreams, even quiet moments where no words were needed. They didn't need a big wedding. No fancy rings. But one evening under the stars, Daniel tied a ribbon around her finger. She blinked. What is this? My promise, he said. That no matter what happens, I'll choose you. Every day. She touched the ribbon gently, like it was more precious than gold. I choose you too, she whispered, again and again. One morning, Lyra found a small box on the kitchen table. Inside was a card with 2 words, for Lyra, and under it, citizenship papers. She gasped. Daniel appeared in the doorway, smiling softly. How? She began. The Town signed a petition, even some of the old commanders. Took months, but they listened. Lyra covered her mouth as tears fell. I'm real now, she whispered. On paper, in name, I exist. Daniel walked to her, lifted her chin and said, You always did. Now the world just caught up. They bought a little patch of land outside the town, built a garden, raised a few animals, nothing fancy, just enough. Lyra planted flowers from her homeworld. Daniel had found the seeds in a trade station. She cried the day the first one bloomed. Sometimes at night, they sat together in the field, stars above them. She would rest her head on his shoulder. He would hold her hand, and when she asked, Why me? He always said, Because I saw you. Not as a prize, not as a burden, but as a soul. Years passed, and the name Lyra became known throughout the region, not as a slave, not as a war trophy, but as a voice for peace, strength, and survival. She was invited to speak in schools. She helped write new laws. She became a symbol, not because she wanted fame, but because her story reminded people of what mattered. Kindness, choice, love. Daniel never tried to take credit. He always said, I just gave her a room. She filled it with something beautiful. One night, as they watched the stars again, Lyra placed her hand on her belly. He looked at her. Her smile told him everything. We're going to be a family, she whispered. Daniel's eyes widened, then softened. He took her hand, pressed it to his lips, and said, Our child will know who their mother is. Who am I? She asked. He turned to her with the same quiet strength he'd always had. You are Lyra. You are free. You are my wife. And you are everything I never knew I needed. And so the girl who once stood in chains, silent and forgotten, became something no one expected. Not a prisoner, not a symbol, but a wife, a mother, a woman who had once been given as a spoil of war, but who was, in truth, the greatest gift he'd ever been given.